Hello and welcome to the Scum and Villainy Report. Today we're going to talk about misplaced priorities. In a world where every penny counts, why does it seem like our government is neglecting its own people, especially in times of crisis? We're watching billions being handed out abroad, while Americans at home are struggling to make it through disasters. Today, we'll expose how this misallocation of resources is leaving Americans behind. Let's roll the clip.
Now, critics are calling out the Biden-Harris administration for having used FEMA money to resettle migrants. The agency spent around $690 million this year to, they say, enable non-federal entities to offset allowable costs incurred for services associated with non-citizen migrant arrivals in their communities. Now, we found that statement on FEMA's website.
Kamala spent all her FEMA money, billions of dollars, on housing for illegal migrants, many of whom should not be in our country. Now we have a horrific disaster in North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, and Virginia. And the Harris-Biden administration says they don't have any money because they spent it all on illegal migrants.
Well, on Wednesday, Vice President Harris visited Augusta, Georgia, to announce storm victims could apply for $750, which could take FEMA around 10 days just to drop that money into their bank account.
So how about that? So we spent 300-some billion helping Ukraine, tens of billions on Israel, not to mention the untold billions that we spent on migrants. What about Americans? FEMA, the agency supposed to provide relief during disasters, claims it doesn't have enough funds to make it through the hurricane season. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says FEMA is stretched. But isn't that what you get for mismanaging priorities? While migrants across the nation are receiving debit cards with thousands of dollars, free housing, food stamps, among other benefits, Americans in the heart of hurricane devastation are told to wait. FEMA has nothing left for them. They didn't help in East Palestine, Ohio. They didn't solve Flint's water crisis. And now, with this hurricane, once again, it's Americans being left to fend for themselves. But sure, the administration can find endless billions for foreign aid. How does that make sense? It's not just a neglect of duty. It's a betrayal of the American people.
Yeah, it's certainly not the news you want to hear, especially if you're living in the Southeast right now in one of those hard-hit states. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known as FEMA, this is the good news. They say they have enough money in the short term, but not enough for the rest of hurricane season. That's the message from Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas this week. FEMA is still tallying up the total damage from Helene as they're delivering food, water, and other supplies to those hardest-hit states in the Southeast. Now, more than 150,000 households have already applied for disaster relief, but that's likely on the low end. That number is probably going to go up and go up soon.
More than 150,000 households in North Carolina have registered for FEMA assistance after the hurricane, but they're getting denied. Why? FEMA claims their insurance should cover it, and the lucky few who do get help, they're offered $750. What a slap in the face to people who have lost everything. How are they supposed to apply for assistance when they don't even have electricity? How do you rebuild your life with $750? Meanwhile, we're emptying our treasury to fund wars abroad. This is the end stage of an empire, one that bankrupts itself on foreign conflicts while its own infrastructure crumbles.
First of all, my heart goes out to all of those who've seen their lives and families and homes and communities devastated by this hurricane, and my frustration and anger at the lack of adequate response, even at a baseline level, from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden reminded me exactly of what our communities there on Maui faced in the wake of that tragic and historic wildfire that took over 100 people's lives. When I went there, Laura, to Lahaina and West Maui just a couple of days after those wildfires completely destroyed the community, I heard from community leaders and neighbors, people who were helping their neighbors, trying to put the pieces back together. They did not see a single federal official on the ground. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they said, well, FEMA's on the ground. Sure, they are in downtown in the government buildings, but not boots on ground in the communities that saw their homes and their community completely devastated by this. And I have friends there in Asheville, North Carolina, and in other communities that have been devastated by Hurricane Helene, and they are saying the exact same thing. As you heard from that sheriff, they don't have access to water. They don't have access to electricity and communication. The same thing that happened to our communities in West Maui, and yet they've said we have not seen a single federal official on the ground.
Tulsi Gabbard, reflecting on the hurricane response, called it Maui 2.0. And she's right. Just like with Maui's devastating wildfire, federal officials are nowhere to be found. FEMA claims to be there, but the reality is they're not. People in North Carolina are going without water, electricity, and communications. It's a repeat of the same failures. Leadership in the White House would rather deal with bureaucratic red tape than get boots on the ground to help these devastated communities. We've reached a point where the people in charge don't care about their own citizens. They care about keeping the machine running for foreign wars and political agendas. This is what happens when a government forgets its own people. Endless billions are being poured into conflicts overseas, while Americans are told, sorry, there's nothing left for you. From Maui to North Carolina, the message is clear. Foreign interests come first, and American citizens are left to suffer. These examples aren't isolated incidents. They are part of a dangerous trend. And it's a trend that, if left unchecked, will only lead to further decline of this country. When will we, as a nation, finally demand that our leaders take care of us first? This isn't about turning our backs on compassion, but at some point, compassion must start at home. And if we can't do that, what's left of this country? If you agree that it's time to hold our leaders accountable, share this video, leave a comment, and let your voice be heard. Because if we don't demand change now, the next disaster could leave us all with nothing. That's all I got for you today. I'll see you on the next one.